Well, it's been almost a year since an initiative called Power Africa was announced by U.S. President Barack Obama on his visit to Africa last summer. He launched a $7 billion effort to double access to power in sub-Saharan countries.
With African nations, we're going to develop new sources of energy. We'll reach more households, not just in cities, but in villages and on farms. We'll expand access for those who live currently off the power grid. And we'll support clean energy to protect our planet and combat climate change.
Recently, companies and government representatives gathered to measure progress on the initiative. Audrey Hruby is a visiting fellow at the Africa Center at the Atlantic Council, and we welcome you to Arise View. Thank you so much for being here. Okay, so Power Africa, is it working as planned?
It's a year in, and I think a lot of progress has been made, but there is a huge deficit on the continent, and the goals have been ambitious. So there's much that still needs to be done, namely in generating new projects on the continent. I think the initiative has been helpful in assisting those that were already moving forward and kind of pushing them across the finish line, if you will.
It's my understanding, of course, so much of the success of this hinges upon the participation of private enterprise, private corporations. So what kind of participation are you seeing from these international companies?
So the Power in Africa initiative has really convened the private sector to get more involved with the issue in general. When I first started following the power issues in Africa 10 years ago, there were only 2, 3, 4 companies, predictable ones, that were interested in the region at all. And now you see that number expanding. They have a series of partners that have actually mobilized over $10 billion now. Now the issue is, how do you turn those pledges into actual projects?
Indeed. And are you saying, does it require those big ones, or are smaller companies getting involved
as
well?
It's a mix. You see the traditional players like General Electric is a leader in Power Africa. Jeff Immelt, the CEO, has announced that they're going to triple their sales of gas-fired turbines, and that's in no part just Africa, but a central part of that is Nigeria. But there are smaller players involved as well. So I consult with several SMEs, U.S. SMEs that are interested in the power space, and there's players like Symbian and Contour Global that have been there for some time now.
You know, is this, Audrey, really about connecting to an existing grid? And then that sort of just obviously leads to the question, what about the many people who live out in extremely remote areas?
It's a comprehensive issue with many, many complexities. The initiative has efforts to increase efficiency of power plants that are in the big cities, Lagos, others, but also an off-the-grid initiative. I was just in Addis Ababa just 2 weeks ago with the Secretary of Energy, who announced a Beyond the Grid initiative that is going to help spur investment in off-grid solutions that will reach the rural population.
You know, I think theoretically people do understand the importance, but in a practical, everyday way, why is this so important?
In order to study at night, you need the lights on. In order to refrigerate medicines, you need electricity. In order to have factories producing goods that can be exported, you have to have electricity. So power really permeates the economy, whether you're talking about social parts of the economy or the growth-driving industries. And so take Nigeria, for example. If the predictions say if power were to come online at the rate expected, you could see economic growth shoot to 15% per year. So it's a phenomenal driver of economic growth.
So what's really needed for this to be successful?
In my view, 4 things are needed. One, a strong focus on projects, not just the countries, but the actual projects. Secondly, more support for the people doing the pre-development work, the ones finding the projects and putting together the ideas. Third, I think USAID should create some kind of web portal where you can essentially access the projects and see, as you're a company, what projects are available. And lastly, I think with all projects, initiatives in the U.S., you really need to ensure there's sustained commitment and momentum over the long run. Much has been done in a year, but this problem on the continent is pervasive and has been there for decades. So really a sustained commitment on the part of USAID and other government agencies on power in Africa will be necessary for success.
How much does the nuances of politics play in this? Because we are dealing with many different countries, many of whom that are in political and ethnic sectarian crisis and turmoil. So so, is there sort of a minefield that has to be navigated here?
Well, Power Africa is focused on 6 countries, and of those countries, I think maybe Nigeria is the most complex of them, given security issues that have recently arisen. That said, all the countries and players in the countries agree that power is a major priority. So actually, in some ways, it's a unifier because everyone recognizes that people need power to develop. So I don't really see politics in the African context derailing this initiative, nor in the Washington context. Currently, the Senate is about to pass a bill called Energize Africa that's setting out similar goals to the administration's, and really you see an alignment, a bipartisan alignment around these goals. So really it's something that unifies everyone, whether it's in Washington or in the African countries themselves.
All right, Audrey Hruby, thank you so much for the update.
Thank you,
Really
it's
do
a pleasure.
appreciate it. That's going to do it for us today. Thank you very much for joining us for a Rise Review. I'm Debbie Turner-Bell in for Julian Phillips. Have a great week.